So we'll be taking today the next topic, that is swagging. Swagging is used to reduce the diameter of the tube or a rod at the end of the workpiece to create a tapered section. So in this case, we can say this is a process when the diameter of the tube at the end of the workpiece is basically cut in a tapered section. In general, this process is conducted by means of rotating dies that hammer the workpiece in radial direction inward to taper it as piece is fed into the die. So Mendel is required to control the shape and size of the internal diameter of tubular parts during sewing. So what is happening in this case? See this figure. This is our billet, clear, or work. This is starting diameter and this is final diameter. So these are the dies, up one and the lower one, and this is the direction of feed. Clear. So what happens is these are rotating. Clear. So it is in this case your dies are rotating. If we see it from the side view of this, we see this your dies are rotating in in this direction. When it is rotating in this direction, and the shape of the dies is at an angle. That is a tapered angle of this side. This one above side, and this is in the beneath. Clear? So when it is rotating, the dies are rotating and it is being cut at a tapered angle. So final shape provided to the your work will be something like this. Clear? So in this case, a mandrel is also required to control the shape and size of internal diameter. Basically, a mandrel in this case is also used because of to maintain actually to keep it stable, and it also let us to in the shape and basically the shape of or the size of internal diameter basically is to be maintained with the help of this your mandrel. Clear? So see diameter reduction of solid work. This is the first case. Clear? Then when there is tube tapering, in this case it is a tube is tapered again, all over the tube is taken off. Then third in case if we see swagging to form a groove on the tube. So in this case the groove is provided at the center or at a specific distance from the end. So the die in this case will be U-shaped die, and the middle is taken off in this shape in this case. So this is when we form groove on the workpiece, and this is in the case of tube tapering. And when simply we have to reduce the diameter of the solid work, we get to use in this direction of this case. Now, if this is the lower one is the swagging at the edge of the cylinder. When a cylindrical shape is to be swagged on the edges. So this is basically the taper over this on the upper side and the lower side in this case. So this is a swagging at the edge of cylinder. So this is basically similar to this, and similar to this swagging is the radial forging. This operation is same as swagging except the radial forging. The dies do not rotate around the workpiece. Instead, the work is rotating and it feeds into the hammer. So in this case, in the case of swagging, dies are rotated, clear. But in the case of radial forging, workpiece is rotated, dies are stationary. Clear. So it is simply the radial forging is simply opposite of swagging. Clear. So it is in the previous case, dies are rotating, clear, and the workpiece is stable, stationary. Clear. And then in radial forging, there is extremely opposite of this. In this case, the dies are stationary and the workpiece is made to rotate around the dies to take off the material of the required shape of the dies, because as the shape of the die will be replicated onto this, and with the replication of that shape the final shape will be achieved. Only difference in this in the case of radial forging will be that the workpiece will be rotating and not the your dies. That is similar to the case when we do turning also. No? Like in that case also the job is rotating, clear, and the tool is stationary in that case. In this case it is similar to this. So in that case also that we have the dies are stationary and the workpiece is rotating, and the turning screw also the tool takes off the material when it is rotating. In this case it takes off the edges or the shapes when it is rotating in this case. Now next it is a roll forming. So it is a forming process used to reduce the cross section of a cylindrical or rectangular rod, passing through it through a set of opposing rolls that have matching grooves with respect to the desired shape of the final part. So it is basically combination of rolling and forging. Clear? Now we see the figure closely. There are grooves in this case. We can say a different. We can say shapes provided onto this. Like into this upper one section is of a different shape. Other one section is of different shapes. Clear? So there are different grooves in this case. So that grooves are basically will be replicating their face or their shape onto the final workpiece in this case. This is side view from this. And when we see it like this, see here when this part will be moving from this, when the workpiece will be moving from this shape will be produced here, and when they will be moving from this shape will be produced here. Finally it will be moving from this shape, that your this curve, third curve will be produced in this case, and that to be imparted on both the sides. Clear? If it is on the one side, then there will be grooves on one side, and if it is on the both the sides, then the grooves are to be similar, and identical grooves are to be on both the sides. If we are to provide, we can say grooves on the both sides of the workpiece in this case. There. So when we see it from side, this is right flanges, and this is from the we can say from the side view. We see this is the dotted one line is the hidden line for this. Basically, this is where the we can say grooves are cut after this. Here, because when we seeing from the side view, the first one the groove will not be visible to us because here the material is not cut, but otherwise the material behind this has been cut. That's why it is being shown with your dotted lines. Clear? So this is center of upper roller, second is the center of down one roller. Clear? So this is depending upon the time amount of deformation, the rolls rotate partially. The speed of rotation of the rolls is controlled, and we depending upon the position that either it is a longer groove, bigger groove, or it is just a curvature over this, or just we have to provide a simple taper for this. So the speed of the rollers will be depending upon the shape. Where then roll port parts are generally stronger and possesses desired grain structure compared to machining that might be used to produce the same part. So another advantage of roll port part is that their grain structure is stronger in this case. See, when we are studying this forging is basically, if we say it is metal removal process only, right? And if we talk of machining, it is also a metal removing process only. But that depends upon us that which type of machining are we opting to, because every machining will have its pros and cons. Like if we do it by turning, maybe we will get a better surface finish, where maybe we can get a better dimensional accuracy by turning, but maybe the grain structure, or we can say the grain structure desired for this, maybe not achieved by turning. Maybe that the amount of hardness, like for case hardening or any part, the amount of that is hardness that we require may not be acquired by machining on this. Yes, although these both processes are metal removing processes. Like in the case of turning, we are also removing metal. In the case of coating, there is always also we are taking off metal in this case. But in this case, the different lies in the way is this, that which process is to be selected to get the maximum pros and minimum cons depending upon the material. Like if we take you talking of cast iron, maybe your machining is the best option. But if we go for lighter alloys, that machines cannot be turned, the materials cannot be turned easily, machined easily. That can be a perfect use for your rolling, sorry, your forging. Where so that lies is it's the final decision lies between the, we can say, the person that is operating, that what amount of, we can say, accuracy, what amount of surface finish, what amount of hardness there, and with which value of time. That means if we say that if we can produce it the similar or the same or the better pieces, better surface finish by turning, but if we say that the time taken by the turning process or the will take more time as compared to this one, so that time can also be a factor if we are opting for mass production. Yeah, so then time can also be a factor in that case also. So all over this, it is also the more or the less these are metal removing processes. But in this case, it is the best, the decision to opt for which technique, which process lies to the user depending upon its requirements and depending upon the we can say given specifications of material, size, surface finish, anything that everything that profits according into this machining of your workpieces. Now, orbital forging. This is another sort of process. In the forming is imparted to the workpiece by means of a cone-shaped upper die that is simultaneously rolled and pressed into the work. So here we see it is your in the shape of a cone. Here this is cone-shaped upper die. Here if we see this is contact area of the upper die and work. Here so it is kept on something like this position. This is the lower die. This is work. This is upper die and it keeps on rotating and due to its cone like structure all of the we can say it is not in contact with every time so we can say the all of the load is not applied to the work at the same time. Yes, in this case all of the load is not applied, the load is substantially we can say applied or we can say there is reduction of amount of load, press load due to the shape of that cone that is provided in this case. So what it says, because of the inclined axis of cone, because we are using cone and so it is to be inclined axis, only a small area of the workpiece is compressed at any stage of movement. So in this case, what is happening is due to its shape, there is inclination on the side of the cone. Clear? So the work surface that is compressed by any stage, because it is a rotating part, it will be going on all through the surface of the workpiece. Clear? So when it is rotating like this, so any stage that is in contact with will not be you can say all there will be a smaller area not a bigger area under the larger area under the compression of this as the upper die revolves so it goes on revolving the area under the compression also revolves so as it rotates so the area changes so as the compression changes so every time there is substantial reduction in the amount of load that is being provided onto the disk. So what is happening? It is when it is rotating, the amount of rotation of this is being rotating all around the corner. So at one time in previous cases, all of the load is applied to the we can say workpiece at a same time. So but in this case, there is not a same amount of load is to be applied on the workpiece at the same time. There is we can say of the rotating the that load is also rotating and the amount of load that is with that is the workpiece is receiving is also rotated simultaneously by this. So what says as the upper die revolves, the area under compression also revolves. So because of its shape, it will revolve, and the area will also revolve in this case because of the partial deformation contact at any stage of forming. Right, this is a form that is there is partial deformation of the contact at any stage because this is not a, we can say all over contact through contact but it is a partial contact so partial contact will bring partial deformation obviously so when there will be a partial deformation so partial contact will be giving its a partial deformation at any stage because it is not stationary it is rotating around the we can say die is rotating upon the workpiece so the we can say the load is also rotating as per the rotation of the die in this case. So there is substantial reduction in press load requirement, and the press load requirement is also reduced in this case because all of the load is not applied onto the workpiece all of a sudden, all of the time, and all over the workpiece. Clear? Then next is your isothermal forging. So what it is a hot forging operation in which the work is maintained at some elevated temperature during forming. The forging dies are also maintained at some elevated temperature by avoiding chill of the work in contact with the cold die surfaces. The metal flows readily to the force requirement is reduced. So isothermal forging is basically we can say pointing us to the reduction in force requirement. So how it is possible? It is a hot forging operation. We have read the hot forging operations are the operations that work above recrystallization temperature. So means that temperatures of both the workpiece and the die is being raised. Where so by this the suitable shape can be achieved with lesser amount of force in this case, because it is already at an elevated temperature. So what will be happening? The amount, the shape that is being required for the workpiece can be achieved by lower amount of force in this case. Where so the force, this process is expensive than conventional forging. Obviously, it will be expensive because the cost of heating also will be taken into account, because it is not a normal heating, because that depends on material to material. Like some materials go up at 1000 degrees Celsius, there some can be at 1500 degrees Celsius. Same with the case of dye. The material of dye will actually be depending on the taking on the temperature that is to be raised upon the, in that case. So it is expensive process, yeah, and is usually meant for difficult to forge metals, and it is normally applied when the forging of materials are different in this case, like tin, superalloys, and for complex part shapes. So like for many complex shapes, if we use it, so it is being used in that part over for generating complex shapes basically. The process is done in vacuum or inert atmosphere to avoid rapid oxidation of dye material. So what will be happening when we be heating it? Obviously, at high temperature, there will be chances of oxidation if the air is present over that time. So it has to be done in vacuum. That is that the dye material don't oxidize. So resulting in being, we can say, erosion of dye, or we can say uh, uh, surface finish is being disrupted in this case due to oxidation of the dye, and the shape of the dye is being disturbed over that time. So that can be prevented only if there is no oxidation. So and that can only take place if we take off the air. We do it all this in a vacuum. That means no air is present into that particular isothermal process. Now orbital forging is being done. Next is your extrusion. So the third process is your extrusion. Extrusion is a bulk forming process in which the work metal is forced or compressed to flow through a die hole to produce a desired cross-sectional shape. So it is similar like we at homes we we actually we all have we can experience extrusion every day in our life. So the best example is when we in the morning when we squeeze the toothpaste out of the paste. So that is basically extrusion only. Because what is happening is we are putting on the pressure onto the back of the tube, and the tube is let to come out of that orifice, and that coming out of that tube is, and that tube comes out in a round shape, like clear. So round shape is because that is the shape of the orifice. If we make it a rectangle, then tube will come out in the shape of rectangle. If we make it like square, it will come out in the shape of your rectangle. Any shape that we provided to orifice of a toothpaste, it will be coming out in that shape only. And the working force will be the force that we press from the back of that toothpaste. Clear? So that is similar when we squeeze the toothpaste in the morning. Clear? So that is when it is being squeezed and the tube comes out from the orifice and taking the desired shape. And the billet comes in very long sizes. Clear? As long as the force is being applied, the billet will go on coming out of this orifice, and we have to either stop the force or the billets can be cut off with the required size of this. So that can be the best example for this. Now take it the advantages. Variety of shapes are possible. Yeah, it's very easy. We just have to change the shape of the orifice in the case of toothpaste, but in this case we have to change the orifice. We can change the shape of the dies. Then variety of shapes are possible, especially during hot extrusion. We do it in see all the four processes can be done on all the three conditions: hot working, cold working, and warm working. Where depending upon the material, depending upon the application, where so it will we can opt for any of that three processes. That can be extrusion with hot working, that can be extrusion with warm working, that can be extrusion with cold working also, that depending upon that. Then grain structure and strength properties are enhanced in cold and warm extrusion. So this comes again, like every process will have its own pros and cons. Yeah. So grain structure and strength properties in this case are enhanced, but that are enhanced only when it is done below recrystallization temperature. Below recrystallization temperature means that hot working is not included when we have to enhance the grain structure and strength properties of the material. Clear? So that is to be taken into account that we won't be allow the temperature to go above the recrystallization temperature, because if it goes with above recrystallization temperature, that will be hot working, and when the hot working is possible, there will be possible changes in the grain structure of the material, and that may take off or refine the grain structure of that material, and the strength may be reduced in that case. So when we need a better grain structure and strength properties, we don't go for above recrystallization temperature, or we don't go for warm working in this case. Then close tolerances are possible mainly in cold extrusion. So if we need a material, or we can see the part produced to be in a very close tolerances, so we normally use cold extrusion in this case. Means it is done at a simple room temperature. Yes. Then types of extrusion, it is direct or forward, indirect or backward extrusion. So we have two types of extrusion, direct and indirect. So let's take off first the direct extrusion. A metal billet is first loaded into the container having die holes. So a metal billet is loaded in the, you can say, container which is having the holes of the in the die. A ram compresses the material, forcing it to flow through the die hole. Like we were talking of the example of your toothpaste. In that case, we are pushing it with our hand. In this case, it is a ram is being used to push the material onto the die in this case. So the work of our hands, that we are forcing it, we are pressing it, it is being done in the case, in this case in direct extrusion with your ram in this case. So some extra portion of the billet will be present at the end of the process that cannot be extruded and is called butt. Clear? So there is some extra portion of the billet that will be left, and that is normally known as the butt, and it is separated from the product by cutting or just by beyond the exit. So that we were talking about. Some extra material is always when we are pressing the toothpaste, if it is make if we like if it is, let us say, if it is we can say a solid substance is coming out of it, so we required it to some fixed length, then the leftover length that is to be come out, because we have to take out some of the extra length from the die so that the actual shape can be cut off later on. Then so that is required in this shape. So because for this we have to cut, and that extruded part, we can say extra part that is come is known as your butt. Yeah. So butt is always required in this case. So see, this is your direct extrusion. In direct extrusion, a significant amount of friction exists between the billet and the surface. It comes between the billet and surface and the container wall, as the billet is forced to slide towards the die opening. Because of the presence of friction, a substantial increase in ram force is required in this case. So now what is happening in this case is, as we push the billet with the ram, so what is happening, this surface, like this is, it is contact with the die here, and it is being pushed by your ram. So there will be, obviously there will be sliding, this part is sliding over this, so there will be presence of friction. So this is sliding friction over this place. So that friction, the work of friction, that will be opposing the flow of this. Clear? That will be container walls and the billet, that will be presence of friction in this case. Because of the presence of friction, substantial increase in ram force. Obviously, if we have to push the, we can say the billet out from the opening, clear, or from the orifice, we have to push it more than the friction that is existing on this. Like in case of your toothpaste, you have to push it until it comes out from the orifice in that case. Clear? So that is Apart from this, like if we goes out from sometimes, so we have the friction, our force should exceed that particular part over this. Then a hot direct extrusion, the friction problem is increased by the presence of oxide layer on the surface of the billet layer. So when it is with a hot direct extrusion, the friction problem is increased because of there is a presence of oxide layer. When we are talking of hot extrusion, because of temperature changes, there forms a layer of oxide on the surface of billet. The oxide layer can cause defects in the extruded product. So what happens in this case is due to that oxide layer, because the oxide layer it goes past to the die, and when it comes out from the orifice on the final stage, there can be defects that are produced on that extruded product. So in order to avoid that, we have to avoid that formation of oxide layer by maintaining the temperature accordingly for that particular product. Clear? In order to address these problems, the dummy block is used between the RAM and the work billet. So another option that we can use it, we keep that is on this surface in between the billet and the die. We keep a dummy block on this. Yes, we keep a dummy block on this between this, so that that oxide layer is not formed, and when this oxide layer is being taken off, so that is what that oxide layer is preventing, so that overall the final material coming out of the orifice will not be having that effects of oxide layer onto that formed product. Yes, the diameter of the dummy block is kept slightly smaller than the billet diameter, obviously because it has to pass from the die. So we will be keeping it slightly lesser than the diameter of the die, uh, so that a thin layer of billet containing the oxide layer is left in the container, leaving the final product free of oxide. So what we have done in this case, we have provided a simple gap between both the your billet and the layer of this your die in this case. So what happens? It keeps on saving over this. So it lets us to save our uh, formation of oxide layer onto this. So the material will be coming out free of oxides in this case. So now hollow sections like tubes can be made using direct extrusion. Hollow sections like this, if we keep outer on this side and keep it on the center of this, then the hollow sections of any shape, that can be circular shape, that can be rectangular, and any shape can be taken out from this. The starting billet is prepared with a hole parallel to the axis. So what we do, we draw it a center of this. We can see we put a like billet on the outside, and we can say a ramp attached to the hole, that is we can show starting billet. We put it on the center of this. As the billet is compressed, the material will flow through the gap between the mandrel and the die opening. So it will not be taking the material from these sides. From these sides, it won't be taking